I love the intro.
That's so us. Hi, everybody.
We did it.
We did. It was all our tardiness is all. Oh, you're over here. All Shannon.
Yeah, it's 100% me. 110% me. Everything about what went wrong there was me. I'm sorry. I'm not very tech savvy.
I am so excited to do this. This is going to be fun.
Yes. I hope there's some real serious challengers. That's what I want.
I do too. Do you want to sort of explain what we're going to be doing here and try to rile up some potential callers?
Absolutely. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking calls from the general audience. And what we're looking for is people to challenge us or anybody who has questions about deconversion that may need advice. So I'm open to both, and so is Kyle. And we're looking to just really have some good in-depth conversations with some people who feel like we need to be challenged, or people who feel as though they have important questions for us. And the number's in the description of both of the videos. So if you're watching this video and you'd like to see us challenge, please share it out. Go post it out on social media along with, well, on my channel, the new link, because I suck, and on the NonSequitur channel. I think you're probably on the original link because you don't suck as much as I do.
It's only because we have spent many months sucking to learn
hours and hours and hours.
Yeah,
so much.
Hours and hours.
Yeah.
The number is right here below me, 1313-666-7371. And yes, 666. You heard that right. And
yeah,
if some people, I guarantee you we'll have somebody that says or out there that would be like, I'm not calling because of the 666. There are people that won't. Like one time I had a friend that told me that they went to a convenience store and bought different things, and the cashier rounded up to like put a penny from that little slide thing, so it would be 667 and not 666.
I'd go in and buy the same thing again.
I think we actually have somebody on the line right now.
Oh, that's exciting. We already have a challenger. Oh, before we go in, I just want to let people on my stream know I'm doing my best to moderate the chat. And if you send super chats, they'll be read at the end. So please don't think that I'm not reading them right away. Everybody knows I'm notoriously horrible at moderating the chat. So doing my best. And also, any super chats will absolutely be read at the end. I think Kyle's doing the same thing. I'm bad at YouTube. I don't know. Just don't go for Shannon. Never good. It's not good for anybody. Everybody suffers. Everybody suffers.
It says here that we have RJ, and RJ, it looks like you want to talk about superstitious beliefs and if they can be traumatizing to children.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. Hi, RJ. Can you hear us? Can we hear RJ?
RJ?
RJ.
RJ, are you still with us?
RJ. Did RJ get tired of waiting?
Maybe he was on here for 18 minutes.
Well, it might be my fault that RJ gave up
it's totally
on account of me not knowing how to set up a live stream appropriately. So I'm sorry, RJ.
Oh, RJ.
Hi. Hi.
RJ. Hi.
Hey.
Hey, Shannon.
Hi, RJ. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay. Hi, Kyle. Hi, chat.
Hi. How's it going? Me too.
I'm pretty good. How about you?
RJ, I think you may have the stream on in the background. If you do you mind muting it because we can hear our echo?
I don't have the stream playing. I don't know why.
Ooh.
It would be echoing.
Interesting. Oh, I could hear it, but okay. It could just be on my end. I'm sorry, RJ.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe my phone volume is too loud.
It's
Hold on,
actually
it
coming
could-
from Kyle.
Yeah, I'm trying
Oh,
to
it's
figure
Kyle.
out.
Kyle's
was
ruining
gonna
everything
say-
now, guys.
I don't know why it's playing out.
I
Like
ruined everything before we went live.
There we go. Okay, there we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
RJ.
There we go, RJ.
Now I can hear you. Okay, we're so professional.
Yeah, right? Yay!
So what's up, RJ?
What's your question, buddy?
Well, I was just wondering if you guys are interested in talking about whether or not superstitious beliefs can be traumatizing for children, because I feel like in my own case it was, or they were, and I feel like with some people that I know that they've had similar experiences.
Okay.
Sure.
What do you mean? What do you mean by superstitious beliefs, RJ?
Well, for example, when I was a kid, my family was, Christian. My grandma was a Sunday school teacher. And I feel like I was so neurotic about, I just was so afraid of the devil, and I was afraid of God too. And I just remember things like my dad's friend told me that in the nearby town that there was this kid that was being bad, and they got pulled halfway underground by the devil, and their upper body was still above ground. And
Oh my gosh.
I was so scared by that image that I would consciously try to find the hardest nearby surface to walk on to, make it easier or harder for him to grab me. So if there was, dirt, cement, asphalt, I remember asking somebody, what's harder, asphalt or cement? And I would always walk on, cement. And there's a few other things. I mean, I was so afraid of God that when I slept at night, I didn't think I should sleep on my back because I thought that I would be showing God my dick. And I didn't want to sleep on my stomach because I'd be showing him my ass. So I thought that I should sleep on my side. And I remember I had this neurotic little prayer that I said, and I would just say it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again to myself, who knows how many times before I could fall asleep.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you had that experience and that it was harmful to you. Like, before I go into talking about generalities, I just want you to know that I recognize that for you, because I'm certain that the reason that you called is because it's personal to you, and I appreciate you being able to share that with a public audience, because it can't be easy, and I'm certain that other people will commiserate and can relate to what you're saying. So I respect you for being able to do that now. Going in.
Thank you. I got mad respect for you. So.
For me? Oh, bless your heart. I am. The list of my faults is long and varied. but thank you. I really do appreciate that. It's very kind. It makes me want to aspire to be better. So I appreciate that. Going into where it causes harm, I did a video called "The Demons in Your Children," and that was a really extremist a version of Christian indoctrination, where the children were actually actively being, physically and mentally harmed, essentially on purpose. If anybody's interested in having a look at that, and I go a bit into the psychology of why it's harmful in that. Speaking more on a generalized basis, I had a conversation with Prophet of Zod about this before he did a video as well, because he did a video on something very similar. I can't remember the title of the video now. I wish I could. If so, I could direct you directly to it, but please go to his channel and check it out. It should be very, very easy to find if this is a subject that interests you, because he did a fantastic job. But I think instilling a fear in children very, very early on that they will face ultimate punishment for not living up to an unattainable standard that they can't even really fathom because of how they process information at a young age is not great. Like, if you tell a child that essentially you have to either be perfect or atone for not being perfect, or you will suffer the ultimate penalty for eternity, that can be damaging. I don't understand how it cannot be. As people will rationalize it by saying, well, you can ask for forgiveness and be atoned. So a child knows that they can ask forgiveness for their sins. But children are a little bit more rational and black and white than people realize. And they also realize that, what if I don't ask for forgiveness and something happens? So that puts them in a constant state of concern, where they feel as though every moment, every second, every hour of the day, they need to ask for forgiveness, because what if something happens and they hadn't atoned?
Yeah.
Because consequences are what children live by. That's why discipline works, is because children live by consequence, because they live in the moment. And when each moment means that you could be subject to an eternity of suffering for something finite, for something that is so human, that all of us, like all of us do something that would be qualified as a sin by somebody's standard practically every moment. Imagine being a child who can't comprehend or critically assess those ideas, and being aware only of the penalties. Exactly.
I'm sorry.
You
can't control your thoughts, and things come in, and then you get worried, like, why am I thinking that this is bad? Shouldn't be having these kind of thoughts. Even as just a kid, you're already having self-censoring yourself because of these thought crimes,
Certainly, absolutely, and worried about your actions in a way that you can't quite rationalize yet. And you so want, especially as a children, you so want to be able to be a gratifying person to people that you deem as members of your family and members of your extended family who love you or in authority. And in your conceptualization, God would be the ultimate member of your family and the ultimate authority. And he's somebody that, aside from a list of ascribed rules that are told to you, you can't even converse with to find out what he wants from you. You have to figure that out for yourself. So it's an incredibly valid question that I think more people should take time to contemplate, especially when they threaten children with things like hell or God's punishment. Realize what that means to a child. And children are very great at articulating their internalized torment, because they're so busy trying to please you, which causes irreparable permanent damage. Kyle, do you have anything to contribute? I feel like
I could see that, because your parents are like the original relationship, and then they're giving you all these ideas, all these beliefs and everything, and there's no way to really not believe them when you're a really little kid, because that's just, I don't know if I've heard that we're wired that way through evolution, that we listen to our parents, because if they tell us, hey, there's a cliff over there, be careful or you'll fall off, and then you don't, then you fall off and die. So you're wired to, believe them. And they're your parents, so you trust them. They take care of you, they give you food and a place to live.
Sure. I've got to start going first, I think, on these questions, because how am I supposed to follow up that?
Kyle, stop it. Stop it.
No, seriously,
You're
I think
just making up for what you did to me at Faithless Forum.
I'll forever be doing that.
Thanks, guy.
RJ, did you have anything else that you wanted to say? And we're going to switch over to the next call.
No, not really. I mean, I have more examples just from like my wife and people I know that have gone through the same thing. But I think maybe we painted enough of a general picture. So
cool.
I appreciate the call, RJ. Thank you.
It was awesome talking to you guys.
You as well.
I appreciate you taking the time.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last thing.
I just said I appreciate you taking the time, RJ. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I'll be watching the show.
Good.
Awesome.
I'm glad. Thanks.
Something to sort of kind of tail end on that. What are your views on, like, how do you handle Santa Claus if you're not a believer?
I struggle with that, actually, because I have an 8-year-old and he believes in Santa Claus. Right. And one of the reasons and I go back and forth, because I'm essentially a hypocrite. But I also want him to have the experience knowing that it's temporary, like that I had, and also want him to be able to have that shared experience with his friends who also believe in Santa Claus, and secretly, as a mom, don't want to be the mom whose kid ruined Santa Claus for the entire grade 2 class. There's that
Right.
also. But
That'd be great.
I don't use Santa Claus as a moral compass. So Santa Claus, the way I reconcile it is that Santa Claus isn't a threat. Santa Claus, like I've not said the words. Actually, I've maybe said the words in my life, but not within the past probably 4 or 5 years when I was fully entrenched and realized the rationalization. I've not said the words Santa's watching, or don't do this because Santa doesn't give gifts to bad boys. Like I won't use him as somebody to mitigate my kid's behavior. Like it's my job to parent him, and I shouldn't use Santa as that. But I do struggle. And another reconciliation that I have is that Santa isn't something that is supposed to give him the moral mandates for how he lives his life in general. And I know it's temporary.
Sure.
So
that's fair.
so
Like I totally agree with you there. I couldn't, looking back, there's part of the experience, where it's sort of like it's experience with your friends, the shows that come on, like Santa is a central figure, and
right.
there are people who make the argument that it's, well, you shouldn't lie to your kids, and I don't think it's lying to your kids. I think it's a nice game of pretend, and there's nothing wrong with pretend.
Right.
Well, I remember like thinking, if you're bad and Santa gives you coal, right? Well, I was like, well, coal's a lot better than going to hell. So there's that.
There's that, yes.
All right.
There's that.
Next, we have Ethan, and Ethan's calling about whether there is a moral way to completely withdraw from politics and religion. Ooh.
Hello?
Ethan, are you there?
Oh, this
Hey,
is...
hi.
Yeah, this is a little surreal.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay, perfect. This actually is a question that I was just talking to my friend about today. He's a political science major. Both my political and religious views are very different than my parents, and it causes a lot of stress and fighting, and a lot of the times I don't want to engage in, the arguments for social justice, things like that, just because it's taxing, it's stressing, and, but I also recognize the fact that there's some sort of moral responsibility in arguing for people who either can't argue for themselves or for what's right regardless. And I don't want to deal with it anymore, but at the same time, I don't know if there's a moral way to just ignore it and leave it behind. And I was just wondering what your guys' take was on that.
It depends on what. Go ahead, Kyle. You go first. Your turn.
That's a good question, and I echo that sentiment a lot. I think that nowadays there's just so much that is going on. There's so many different things that are reaching for your attention at all times, whether it be with Trump or anything else in politics, the goings on with, like you mentioned, either social justice movements or activism. There's always something to keep sort of your attention to. I think, to me, you have to pick one or two that is close to you. You can't do them all, right? You can't be the end all be all of every problem that's going on. So for me, I like to keep like one or two things that are close to me, like the anti-theism thing and the LGBTQ advocacy, and I focus on those. And if the other stuff, I try to stay, somewhat knowingly of, just because of what we do and like topical events and that sort of thing. But it's really ultimately your choice. Like, if you don't want to deal with politics, don't deal with politics. If you don't want to deal with social justice issues, then stay away from them. There's nothing wrong with just living life the way you want to. Don't do it for other people's sake or because you think that other people expect that of you, because that's just that's not a thing that I would put on myself. But if you have some interests, follow those, and the things that don't interest you, stay away from, because it's just a headache.
Well, I think the biggest one for me is I mean, my family is they're fundamentalist Christians, so world's 6,000 years old kind of thing. And I'm actually a physics major.
Oh goodness.
So there's a lot of issues with usually it's evolution and climate change are the two we talk about the most. Cosmology actually isn't talked about too often, but those ones I'm more comfortable dealing with because I feel like I at least have some level of knowledge on I have some level of ground to where I can argue and say, well, I mean, we have good data, et cetera, et cetera. But normally when it gets to politics, I don't like to engage. I would rather not.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, it's okay if you don't want it. You're not a soldier who exists to fight every battle in the world. So one of the things that I do is I choose the battles, like Kyle said, that are the most important to me. And if I feel as though I want to be an advocate or I'm equipped to be an advocate, then I throw myself into that. I throw my energy into that so that I can do that to the best of my abilities. It sounds to me as though you're not really speaking necessarily about, being a public advocate or engaging in public politics. You're speaking about how to interact with family members who are diametrically opposed to you when it comes to their personal politics and their perspectives on things like science. So I'm always about aligning your goals and intentions with your actions. So the first thing that you should really ask yourself when you're going into these engagements is, what would I like the ultimate outcome to be? Now, if that's going to be different for everybody. If your ultimate outcome, the desired outcome, is maintaining positive relationships with these people, these may be things that you can't talk about with them. These may be subjects that you want to avoid, and you just maybe want to demonstrate, good behavior to them. And there's something to be said for that as well. If your ultimate goal is to help their thoughts align with your own, or to help them at least to a certain degree understand your perspective and your thoughts, then you may want to start looking more so at different communication strategies. And it's difficult to give general advice about that because that's going to vary from person to person. There are some people that are incredibly responsive to you speaking to them directly on topics and showing them evidence. And there are some people that are more receptive to emotional appeals. And there are some people that you're going to have to chip away at, like sand through an hourglass over time. So that's a hard general question to answer. But I think that I would look more so at strategies, or maybe try some strategies tentatively with them in casual conversation on topics that aren't as controversial, and see how receptive they are to your style, and figure out a style that each individual person is receptive to when it comes to communicating things, and stick to that style when you're going to larger issues, because that's clearly what they're receptive to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I will try and pursue that to the best of my ability. Thank you.
And
I really appreciate it.
You should one of the things that you said that you were passionate about talking about, which is climate change, is actually one of the most, if not the most important issue that we face now. So I mean, that is one. If you're going to be in the middle of a conversation, you're vital to sort of getting that narrative across, that climate change is something that is real, and we're almost to the the brink of where we can't come back from. So I think you've picked one that is probably the most important one of our day. So I mean that should keep you on your toes.
The nice part with that, we've come to the agreement that the temperature is going up. They don't know if humans contribute, but we agreed on that the climate is rising. So baby steps.
Then you've already found some effective strategies then, Ethan. Like you've already managed to allow, they've given at least small concessions. So count that as a success. Count that as a success.
Thank
and
you guys
continue
again.
from there.
Sure.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate the advice.
You're so welcome.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you called. Thank you. This is fun.
Thanks.
These are fantastic calls.
Yeah.
Ethan, thank you.
They are.
Everybody's delightful. I thought I was going to get screamed at. This is just completely delightful.
We've got a full queue now.
God.
This next one is funny. Amanda, what's your question?
Hi.
Hi.
Are you married?
We are.
Not to each other.
Yeah. We just have separate rooms.
Kyle, it's a secret.
Cool.
Don't tell Paul.
All right.
Don't tell Paul it's Leah. I'll be in trouble.
Was that all you had, Amanda? I was happy
That's
to
it.
answer that
Thank
for
you
you very
guys so
quickly.
much. I really love
Yeah,
you guys' content. Thank you.
Don't tell anyone though. Don't let the secret
Don't tell
out.
anybody.
I
It's a secret. What happens in
Not
Texas
anyone.
stays in Texas.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We've got next coming up Rob, who wants to talk about activism. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. So I did have some questions regarding activism. So the first thing I wanted to go ahead and ask was, so as far as the effect of actually reaching out to believers as opposed to creating a space where non-believers can actually discuss ideas, I see a lot of things like American Atheist really seems to hammer the idea of like pushing for creating a space for like current non-believers to go ahead and actually get out. But I don't see a lot about actually sort of outreach toward trying to just get out and talk to people who believe in like religions and superstitions and all that. Do you think that is sort of a lost cause with a lot of people because, from birth, you kind of get it ingrained in? Or do you think that that's worth pursuing? I'm getting a little older and activism is more on my mind lately.
Awesome. Kyle and I both probably have a ton to say about you. You want me to go first? Okay.
Yes.
I have a ton to say about this. So we were just at Faithless Forum just a week ago. Not even a week ago. We were at Faithless Forum. Oh my gosh, it seems like a month ago. It wasn't even a week ago. Kyle and I were both at Faithless Forum along with a lot of other content creators, and it was an open forum. It wasn't specifically for members of the atheist community. It was open to everyone. It was a place for yeah, that's right. Ocean was there. Ocean hung out with us afterwards. Ocean's a polytheist, a staunch and ardent polytheist. It was a place that was about not only community building, but bridge building, because we all understand that vilification of people who believe things that are different than what we believe is essentially vilification of the previous version of ourselves. We believed, most of us, not all of us, but the lion's share, a substantial portion of us previously believed, and our families believed, and our loved ones believed, and our friends currently believe. To create that type of polarization is beneficial to no one, because everybody just retreats to their camps and throws grenades at each other, and nobody in society benefits from that. Conversations, dialogue, recognizing common humanity, those are values that we should instantiate, not simply I'm right, you're wrong, and because I'm right and you're wrong, you're not like me, go away. that's not who any of us, at least in that group of people, want to be. So there is a place for advocacy. There is a place for refuting dogma and attacking bad ideas. Well, you can still understand that those ideas inhabit people and be respectful of that and temper your approach. So there's a way. There is a way. It's nuanced and we're all figuring it out together. But there is a way that we can respect the fact that there are people who are astonishingly amazing, astounding individuals who we should desire to learn from, while also understanding that they can learn from us as well. And building relationships is the way to have that happen.
It's important too to understand that there are different avenues that you can take to be an activist. It doesn't have to be somebody that's, on the front line, so to speak, or you're going out there doing the events. A big form of what I think is activism is keeping those people where they can do what they do, supporting them, if you're able to monetarily, whether it be just giving them some kind of encouragement. Like I don't think people understand how much just nice comments about, the importance of what somebody does goes a long way. Because especially in this area of religion, you field so many different comments that's just like, oh, well, you're going to hell, or you don't know what you're talking about, you're an idiot. So when you do get those words of affirmation, they stand out, and it's a really big motivator, and it reminds people why they do what they do. But if you're not one that wants to get out there and sort of get in the wrestle it up in the mud, or fight on a front where you're the one in the middle of the action, that's completely fine. There are so many different ways that you can be an activist rather than just being actually out in the middle of what's the activism part.
Did that help to address
Okay,
anything?
yeah. Sorry?
Did that help to address anything for you, Rob, or is there anything that we missed? If there's something we missed, please let us know.
Yeah, I'm just because I'm looking around here. I'm kind of near a college campus. It's a pretty liberal area, so it's a little easier to kind of talk to people out here, as opposed to like the more like conservative, like Ohio kind of universities where everyone's very I don't know how to put it other than
Progressive.
like conservative people don't like to really listen to new ideas, mostly just want to talk at you, I found. So but I've noticed that there isn't really much in the way of activism out here. There isn't much going on in my area, at least. And I'm wondering if it's worth just getting out there, setting up a folding table and just saying, just putting a sign up that says, I don't believe in God, come talk to me.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, yes. If that's something that you are motivated to do and you feel comfortable doing it, you should do it. You have absolutely no idea the effect you would have. You may never know the effect you have, but you would have an effect. If for no other reason that somebody, especially if you're, I mean, you said you're in a kind of progressive area, but there's conservative pockets around, if I'm understanding correctly, that are pretty staunch. There could be somebody who approaches you expecting you to be a certain way because they've lived with a bias their entire life, and you demonstrating to them that that bias is broken could have a domino effect that you don't even realize just by carrying on a normal, casual conversation with them. You don't even necessarily have to change their mind about religion, but you may have just changed their mind about atheists. And that's a big step. That's a big step for somebody who's that staunchly entrenched in dogmatic thinking. It's really, really hard for some people. They hear atheist, and even if it's somebody that's in their family, somebody that they love, and somebody that they know, they think to themselves, everything about you has changed, when really the only thing about you has changed is that you're being honest with them about what you believe. And it's because there's not more of us out there, because so many of us are afraid to just say, I'm an atheist. Come talk to me, come have a conversation, come find out what I believe, come find out where I derive my morality, come find out what my values are, come find out what type of person that I am, because of those stigmas. It's the reason that so many of us feel that we have to hide behind closed doors and feel afraid to talk to our families and feel afraid to go to our offices and say that we're atheists, or go out in public and tell our friends, and just be proud of the fact that that's a part of who we are, just like being religious, is a part of who other people are.
Mm-hmm.
You doing that could have such an effect that you may not even realize. I wish more people would, and I'm really glad that you have the wherewithal to even contemplate it. Please
even
do.
if you change,
Well, as it is,
Videotape
if you change one mind, even if you change one mind, it'll be so worth it. Just changing
Absolutely.
one mind makes a difference.
Absolutely, that's how it starts.
well, as it is, I'm sort of I'm almost like a community figure in my area, just because the place I work at, I interact with a lot of students.
Okay.
So I'm kind of viewed positively. I'm kind of someone they already know as well, just because of where I work. They go out to party a lot. They buy a lot of stuff at my store.
You don't want to say you're a big deal, but you're a
approaching
big
someone that
deal.
they already what?
You don't want to say you're a big deal, but you're a big deal.
I'm not really a big deal. I'm just like someone who's known locally, and it's someone that they kind of already view like positively. So I think that also might be helpful. I'm just wondering like how to go about branding, because like I see a lot of groups that want to go ahead and reach out, but they tend to just message themselves in kind of a negative way that only ends up lending themselves to being echo chambers.
Oh,
Branding. I'm a
that's
branding
Kyle's
fan.
jam.
I don't know though that this is something that you necessarily want to brand. This, like, do you mean, when you say branding, do you mean like, let's say a club or a group that you're going to start with several different people and you want to be like known as something, or are you going out to just go ahead?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I mean, like messaging, just how you present, because obviously the firebrand never works very well. It's annoying. No one wants to talk to a firebrand. Atheist, Christian, no one wants to deal with it.
Not one-on-one, no.
All you, to me, what the best way to be is somebody that is able to have a discussion without getting like over emotional. You're able to lay out a case for why X is X and Y is Y, and like you said, if the firebrand is going to push people away, there's a sort of a question that was asked to me one time on stream, and they asked me about the baker that refused to bake the cakes for that gay couple, and what my position on it was. Like, should they be forced to make a cake for a gay couple or not? And I was always on the side of that they shouldn't have been forced to bake that cake. And here's why. I think that in some instances, there are times where you can do more damage by sort of trying to impose your will than you can by not. So if you choose to force the bakers to bake a cake, that's going to entrench them even further in their position against homosexuals. It's not going to do anything to sort of alleviate that. It's going to make them double down that much harder, because here's the government coming in telling them, what they have to do. And I know that's a very contentious issue, and there are people who say they absolutely should be, and I understand that it's a difficult situation. But my ultimate point is, when you double down with sort of force or any kind of hateful rhetoric, it only makes the person that you're talking to realize that they don't want to be that type of person. They're having a conversation with somebody that is angry and vitriolic, and they want to be as far away from that as possible. So as long as you remain cool and calm and knowledgeable about the things that you're saying, people should gravitate towards that naturally. And I think that people can see the difference there. Religion is highly based in emotional yelling, the whole hellfire and brimstone thing. And if you do your best to stay on the opposite side of that, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. It goes down
Yeah,
to intent.
and really, anytime you start, imposing government force on liberties, it just turns out bad. You can just leave a shitty Yelp review and it'll do enough damage that it's going to hit their bottom line. So
yeah, society has a good way of righting those type of wrongs, I think.
Right. Yeah, like, this is where the left-leaning libertarian comes out, but like the free market will solve that. You just make
Sure.
the idea popular and it'll work.
Rob, was there anything else before we got to get to another caller? But this was an awesome
I think that was great. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and thanks for doing this live stream.
Thank you for calling. It's awesome.
Bye, Rob.
Everybody's so
Okay.
delightful.
Right, and
are we on the Non-Seq Show? I'm confused.
No, it's because we're also streaming to the Shannon Q show.
Oh, that's
But
right.
I think that there may be somebody that wants to talk to you. It looks like about maybe anti-theism. Now I'm going to caller. Caller, I'm going to read what the auto screener says, and I think that I've sort of sorted it out. I'm going to tell you what our screen says, and then I'm going to tell you what I think it meant. But what I have is Polly Spackle calling about Shannon cute anti-season. Now, what I think that means is Holy Spackle calling about Shannon Q's anti-theism.
Cal, get it?
Would that be
Okay. Yes.
okay? Cool.
I was calling about Shannon Q's anti-theism.
There we go.
Perfect.
Sorry, your
All
voice
right, Polly
recognition
Spackle.
got crazy.
Yeah, that was. But I mean, we can talk about the seasons if you want to. It's spring. I love spring.
I'm a fall person myself.
Oh.
Go ahead, Polly Spackle.
First of all, Shannon, I did want to say that I can sometimes be critical of you, and it's very unpopular. But I can also say a lot of things that I like about you. And one of the things I like about you is that you can usually have conversations with very difficult people, and you play softball with them. And I think that there's a lot of people who are here in these formats for either persuasion or understanding. And if you are trying to be understanding, playing softball when you're interviewing and stuff like that is extremely helpful because it opens up communication lines. So I do appreciate that about you. My question is, though, I've always noticed that you are an anti-theist, and most anti-theists that are more reasonable are anti-theists based on humanitarian reasons. I myself am, I guess, a Christian humanist, maybe, Mr. Rogers style Christianity, kind of what I go for. My question to you is, is all religion harmful?
Kyle. Yes.
I'm an anti-theist myself too.
Yeah. Okay. So that's an intensely complex question. So please bear with me while I lay out my answer so that I can do your question justice. Now, one of the reasons that I perceive myself as an anti-theist isn't actually the reasons that you lay out. It more so has to do with the imposition of thought processes. So the external imposition of a framework of thought processes onto somebody from a young age, especially one that doesn't have any proven efficacy and has some proven detriment, can be and almost invariably is detrimental in outcomes. If your available choices, let's say in life, and I'm probably articulating this poorly because I'm doing it on the fly. If your available choices, given all of your cognitive inputs in life, have to fit in a box and aren't free reign. They have to fit within a pre-existing schematic that you're given. Like you're given a template, and every choice that you're given, every input that you receive has to fit within that template. Otherwise, there's deleterious effects to you because you're not adhering to something that you're told is necessary. May or may not be, but you're told that it is. That guides you in how you're thinking forever to your detriment, because you're making choices in a potentially and almost invariably faulty framework. You may have chosen otherwise, given options or given inputs, but you have to make a choice that exists within a framework because there's consequences that if you don't. And that framework is imposed upon you. You're told from the time that you're a child that that is the framework that everything needs to exist within. Does that make sense? That's the mount to my anti-theism. And it's also that same reason is the reason that I've been asked the question, if you could press a button, would you get rid of religion? And I've always said no. And one of the reasons is, and the big reason is, I should say, not even one of the reasons, the big reason is that if I want people to have free reign of thought and free choice of thought, I would be hypocritical and contradictory to my own principles if I told them that what I think about how the world should exist and how they should think is better than how they currently do. So I would never press that button because I want people to come to these conclusions on their own. I don't want that imposition. I would fight to the death so that somebody could retain their religion. But that right to religion ends where my rights and others' rights begin. And I want to fight for everyone from the point that they're born to the point that they're in old age to not be constrained by an external ideology that's imposed upon them. Does that make sense?
Let me pick up on where
that was going to be my next follow-up question would be then what I know that like as parents it's really difficult to, I'm not a parent, but I'm putting my parent hat on. I used to be a youth leader at church. So like when you're dealing with kids and stuff, it's really difficult not to impose some sort of ideology on kids. So like, for instance, in America, you know, there's capitalism and democracy and all sorts of very American kind of cultural ideas and ideologies detached from religion even. Are those also harmful?
Are ideologies in general harmful? Potentially, depends on the ideology, I would think. Are dogmatic ideologies that are consequential, that are imposed on you from the time that you're born, harmful when they don't necessarily have any proven efficacy? Yes. Now, I am a parent, and this is another thing that I've said publicly. My job as a parent isn't to teach my child what to think, it's to help him learn how to think. So whatever religion he chooses, or none at all, will be his choice and not mine. So that's not an ideological imposition. What I'm teaching him to do, and what everybody should teach children to do, is to rationally assess propositions. So if he's presented with any ideology, he knows that he's able to critically assess that free of consequence from me, certainly. There may be external consequences outside of me if he chooses to not exist within the framework of capitalism, for example, because I'm in Canada, it's still a capitalistic society, a democratic capitalistic society. He's free to assess those consequences. He's aware of the consequences that exist because that's the reality that we exist within. We exist within that reality in a very tangible way. So he's aware of those existing consequences in his real life in reality. Now, me imposing additional existential consequences on top of that tangible reality consequence is an added level of consequentialism that I am now imposing upon a child. He's already grappling with ideologies. He's already grappling with the reality of what you need to grapple with to exist in the world. Me adding a level to that and saying, not only do you have to assess these principles that I'm proposing to you, and we can have a conversation about that. We can look at how you assess these things. But on top of that, here's a list of mandates that have been dictated to us that we have to adhere to no matter what, and they cannot be questioned. The rest of the propositions that I put in front of him can be questioned, and he understands the real world tangible consequences. These are existential consequences that he doesn't know whether or not do or do not exist. He does not know whether or not hell does or does not exist, and nobody does. And anybody who says that they do know absolutely, as a matter of fact, is just full of it, as far as I am concerned. And I'm certainly not going to impose that on my child. And anybody who makes an argument that I should, or I'm just omitting an ideology because I'm a hypocrite, isn't critically assessing it, I don't think. And if he decides to believe in it one day, that's him. But I'm not going to tell him he has to.
I think that was what I said. And let me say this to sort of summarize that up on why I'm an anti-theist, and it's for sort of what Shannon pointed out. The critical thinking part is paramount to how we function together as a society. If you take a look at the failure of critical thinking in the anti-vax movement, the fact that one article was able to sort of bring back these diseases that we've been without for years, and now they're at epidemic levels. I mean, it's because of a lack of critical thinking that happened. And the thing with religion is, and why I think religion is harmful, is because it sort of teaches you by default to think that doubt is for some reason a bad thing. When you start to question things, that's you questioning your maker. It puts this fail-safe switch in your mind to where you can't go beyond a certain point, or it's like treasonous to your religion. And there's so many things that I think we can just avoid as a society if we didn't have that sort of that mindset and thinking. Imagine, if you just go back century after century after century, there is always some sort of big event or war or group of people who are discriminated against or told that they are less than, and that still to a large extent happens today. There are still groups of people who are religious, not all, but some religious people who would be fine with executing people who are gay, or stoning women who commit adultery. Those things are rooted in fundamentally that religion. And I think that ultimately, when you look at things, there's no good that comes from religion that you can do, or that you can't do in atheism. None of it. There's not one thing that somebody can point to that is a benefit or a positive thing religion does that also can't be done just as well, if not better, by being an atheist. So for that reason, and those reasons, and the reasons that Shannon just outlined about critical thinking and being able to analyze propositions without sort of something tugging back at you saying, whoa, don't think too much about this. That's why I'm an anti-theist.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on it, because I find that a lot of anti-theists are extremely, and not yourself, and Kyle's never been anything but kind and respectful to me, but there are many anti-theists that I've locked heads with that are very firebrand, incendiary, unfair, and it's very frustrating to have those conversations. So I appreciate that you took the time to eloquently state your reasons.
Yeah, there are shitty atheists out there. Absolutely.
Oh,
and
God.
That's the thing. The only thing that sort of we have in common is the fact that we don't believe a God exists. That's it. Everything else is on the table. I mean, you've seen it here. Shannon and I have been. We had a show about an atheist a couple of months ago, and some comments that he made. Like, it's atheist does not mean that you are free from being a shitty person or having bad ideas or just being a really terrible person. That exists throughout the board in every single religion, non-religion, politics. Those people are across the board. You have to look, I think, to see the people that are living the way that they say that other people should, or sort of adhering to the principles that they're espousing to adhere to. You can tell people right away by how they act. I think character is a huge thing, and I'm sorry that you've had bad experiences with that, but I mean it runs both ways. Like, that I've had bad experiences
obviously
with
it runs
Christians.
both ways. I fight with Christians all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we
Absolutely.
fight with atheists all the time. Holy smokes.
Yes.
And also keep being critical with me. Please. Be critical. Be critical. I want to be able to analyze myself and ensure that I am adhering to the principles that I espouse. So
sure.
Yeah, please. I didn't realize that you were critical of me, but I'm glad to hear it, and I hope that I can find
critical,
places where
not
you
flame
were.
throwing.
No. Critical's good. Don't necessarily be flame throwing. I'm not sure how productive that is. Like, I have enough of that. God help me. Have you seen my Twitter?
Although every now and then she needs the stone. So
you know what, Kyle? I swear to God.
Well,
thank you.
I wanted to say something real quick.
Sure.
And I'll be out of your hair soon. There's a woman who recently died. Her name is Rachel Held Evans, and if you look her up, she's a columnist, and she's fairly popular as a liberal Christian columnist. And I've been watching Bible Thumping Wingnut, particularly his side of the camp, the Calvinist side, and Pulpit and Pen attacking her death. And partially because she was accepting of LGBTQ people. And because she was accepting of those people saying, I think they're saved. I think Jesus would treat people differently than what you're saying. I don't think Paul was talking. I think Paul was talking about pedestry, things like that. Because she explored those ideas, they're like convinced she's going to hell. And she talks about doubt. And I just want to let you know that there are Christians who are on that spectrum of we do try to look at things critically, but we have this religious, not even religious, I hate saying religion in a way, but I don't want to play games with word. We have a calling to a spiritual thing, like this God belief, right? And so there are Christians that are kind of stuck in this middle ground of wanting to have conversations with skeptics and wanting to have conversations with our own camp, saying maybe we can progress, maybe we can get better. Come on. And I just want to let you know that there are people like Rob Bell, and there are people like Rachel Held Evans and John Pavlovich, John Pavlovich wrote a letter that said, if my son was gay, how would I treat him? And there are Christians that are trying to make a difference on their side of the camp. So I did want to bring that aware, because I know you guys highlight fundies all the time, and there are other Christians that do try to make a positive impact.
And
Holy Spackle, I want to say a thing. I absolutely recognize that, and I struggle with my channel, and that's one of the reasons that I have so many conversations on my channel. I mean, I had Inspiring Philosophy on my channel, and he and I had a fantastic conversation, and I'm having Ben Shatner, who I get along fantastically, on my channel on Tuesday, this Tuesday coming. And one of the reasons is because people are people. Just because the ideas inhabit those people that aren't the same ideas that I have, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't have respect for them, and not all of them are worth dismissing simply because they adhere to something different. And one of the reasons that we address the people that we do, and I can't speak for Kyle, but I can speak for myself, is because they're the ones who are actively causing harm. And that's undeniable and undeniable, I should say, and it requires addressing. Us ignoring it would be akin to just standing by and watching somebody be, beat to us. Like that, we feel as though we are equipped to address these things, so we address these things. And I attempt to be clear in my videos, that especially in my Christian counseling videos, I say, there are counselors of any and all faiths who are doing fantastic, amazing, wonderful, and productive work those aren't the people that I'm talking about. I try to make those addendums so that they're clear. So if I have not done a good job of doing that up until now, and you felt that it needed to be countered in this point because you felt as though I was making all people of faith out to be bad people, I apologize, and I'm sorry that you felt that you had to bring it up to be countered, because you shouldn't have had to feel that way, because I've made an effort to be certain that I didn't portray that message, and if I did, then I'm going to have to tighten it up a bit.
And there's a reason, Holy Speckle, that like you said a minute ago, and I appreciate the compliment, that I've always been respectful and friendly towards you, and that's because you aren't one of those that are causing the harm and actively discriminating against people. I only try to go after those that are causing harm, and the ones that aren't, we get along fine. Like you and I have always had very pleasant interactions. I don't think that I've treated you ugly because you're a Christian, just like you haven't treated me badly because I'm an atheist. There's an understanding there, I think, that
No.
I'm not going after your, like, who am I to tell somebody what to believe? I don't have, I wouldn't try to do that to you, just like I would hope that you wouldn't do that to me. There's a respect there that
Kyle, you can't ask me any questions that I'm not already asking myself.
and that's good. That's good.
That's
good. Yeah, that's good. But I'm just saying, like, I don't begrudge you of your faith, because you have faith in a way that is yours, and you're not trying to shove it off onto other people or try to rule people's lives with your religion. And that, to me, that is a fine thing. I have no issue with that. I have issues with the ones that are actively going out and voting for the legislation that alters people's lives and keeps people from doing such and such. So that's why we've always gotten along, because I don't consider you in that camp. And yeah.
Well, I have issues with that too, and I'm outspoken about it. So I think we do the line right there, which is, I'm for the legalization of gay marriage, and I'm for equal rights and things like that. But thank you so much for having a cordial conversation, both Shannon and Kyle. I'm going to head out because it's getting kind of noisy.
All right. Thank you for calling.
Have a good night. Thanks, Holy Speckle.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We're probably it's almost 10:30 now. We'll probably try to get maybe one or two more in, depending on.
Okay. This has been so much fun.
Yeah. Although I forgot that we did start we'll try to get two in. We did start a little late. We do have a full line. Next caller is Lynn. Lynn, and again, I'm just going to read what the screener says on here. Okay.
Oh gosh.
I want to talk about religion in high context culture and low contact Scotia. This reminds me of Poland.
I'm from low contact Scotia.
Poland. Hey, Lynn.
Hello, Kai. Hello.
Hello,
Lynn? Shannon.
Hi. Yeah. Here I am. How are you, Lynn?
Hi.
I'm sorry, Kai. I think you wrote my name wrong. It should be M-I-N-H, not that name.
Min?
Oh, I'm sorry. Min?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Our call screener transcribes things really badly. so I'm
like
so
Siri.
sorry.
It's like Siri's stepbrother.
Yeah. Sorry. It's not my English. It's not my first language, so I don't pronounce
Not a problem.
very well.
Not on you. We blame the call screener. It's automated. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so I want to ask Shannon that do you think that religion is better, like in a high context society instead of a low context one? And because I'm sure you study psychology, so I'm pretty sure you know what high context mean, right? High context society and low context society.
Are you saying high contact?
High context. Sorry.
Context.
Context.
Society.
Yeah, context. Yeah.
So you're referring to society. You know what? I'm not really sure that I know what you mean, to be honest with you. No.
Yeah, let me try to explain in a way that may be clear. So high context culture, in my opinion, I mean, actually, I saw it, people discuss about it, meaning that people communicate to each other, not only through verbal, like the verbal communication, but also through nonverbal communication as well. So whatever somebody say to you, it doesn't just, you have to look at the body language of that person and the environment to judge the what the person mean, not just the words from that person saying. And I think that's why I think like religion, when people see it in a way that there is a layer of meanings in a story or a teaching, not just what the words say, and I guess it's less harmful in my opinion. So what do you think, Shannon?
Okay, I'm going to try to repeat back to you what I believe my understanding is first, so that I'm making sure that I'm responding to the appropriate thing. So when you say high context society, you're referring to the multifaceted components of communication. So you're referring to not only the actual words that are being spoken to people, so not only morphemic meaning, you're also referring to the implicit meaning or the subjective meaning or the interpreted meaning. Interpreted is probably a better word. The interpreted meaning from the body language of the person or people that you're communicating with, along with like other sort of implicit tacit meaning mechanisms like tone, for example, tone of voice, previous history with a person, the medium through which you're receiving the information. Are you talking about that? Like the ability for people to receive information through multifaceted avenues?
Yes, you are correct, Shannon, and please allow me to elaborate a little bit of that question.
Sure. Okay.
And I hope you're not annoyed when I bring up, Jordan Peterson in this conversation.
No.
And I'm not exactly his fan. It's just that the way he talks about religion, like he talked about, there is a metaphysical substrate, so meaning that there is a meaning behind the story, not we should not just read the story just by looking at the words, but understanding that there's a context and there is layers of meaning under that. And I think if our society had more religious people like him, I think it's probably less dangerous. What do you think, Shannon?
More religious people. Okay, so Jordan Peterson says some things that make a lot of sense. He says some things that are insightful, but he also says a lot of things that are harmful. He obfuscates a great deal. What he does when he's communicating is he essentially appeals to emotion and common sense, and then mic drops.
Yeah.
As though
he
solved the world's problems because he's appealed to emotion and common sense, and then he references, his PhD in his fields of study, and then that's it. One of the things that, when specifically regarding his perceptions on religion, now there is value in finding meaning in narratives and stories and literature and media in general, I guess would be the best way to I guess conceptualize it, because media could mean many things throughout cultures throughout time. Us looking to stories to find meaning is nothing new, and it's not going away. Now, us looking to stories to find meaning and picking a particular story, deciding that story's meaning is the ultimate meaning, and then modeling our society and our lives after that one specific story, because subjectively somebody has decided that that story instantiates the best version of meaning isn't a great idea. Would you think that that is a great idea? I mean, if what Jordan Peterson is advocating for is that we should really respect that we can find meaning in literature, and we can find meaning in stories, and we can find meaning in stories that have foundations in our histories and in the archetypes that we see in society that mimic society as we see it, and that mimic society in its previous instantiations, and that we should have respect and reverence for the fact that those stories exist, then I absolutely agree with him. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying not only should we have respect and reverence for the fact that those stories exist, but that there is a specific story that we should have the most respect and the most reverence for. And that story, he won't say it's true. He won't pin himself down that much. But he's essentially espoused that this one's the best. And because it's the best, we should all aspire to live our lives as though this story is true. Now, I don't agree with that. And I think that people that do should start giving some critical analysis as to whether or not he's right about that story being the best. And there's a lot of people doing that, and the story's not the goddamn best.
Or you could just clean your room.
Or you could clean your room, which I wish Kyle would do more.
Yeah.
Since we're married.
Yeah. Thank you, Shannon. Yeah. The thing is, when I immigrated to the United States, it took me a while, to learn to talk to communicate people directly what they say, not just just because I have a tendency to interpret people not just through what they say, but also the way they have the eye contact to me, or how their body language. And I am like that because the way of my religion, I guess, instilled me, because in my culture, people don't usually read religion the way the Western people do. So that we have a lot of, like parable or story, and then we don't just read it and say, okay, this is what the way it is. But there is something else, so you have to contemplate on that, and let's sort of do some meditation exercise to get a meaning and apply it in your life. I guess that's why it's difficult for me not to have some sort of, I guess, spiritual belief based on the religious narrative. So, that's why.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Shannon?
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. There was a slight lag, and I thought you were done. I really apologize. It sounds to me as though what you're saying is there were some narratives that you were exposed to, some stories you were exposed to, or some really important writings that you were exposed to, that people encouraged you to be introspective about and analyze internally and meditate on those. Now, there's value in that, inarguably. There's value in introspection, always. And one of the reasons it sounds like you're saying that you're able to, I guess, read people as they're communicating, not simply for the words that they're saying, but their mannerisms and the method through which they deliver their message when they're communicating with you is because you were taught to be introspective and analytical and not take things on their face, and you derived positive outcomes from the practices that were a part of your faith. So my question to you would be, are those positive outcomes a result of a deity, or are they the result of you engaging in a positive practice that was affiliated with your faith? Because you could engage in those practices, perhaps they wouldn't be as strongly entrenched in culture if it wasn't for faith. And there could be arguments made for that, but you could entrench, if these are values that we find beneficial, you could learn them without that faith.
we're going to give you the last word, Min, with answering Shannon's question, because I've got two more people on the line and two callers, Storm Runner and Free Skeptic. We are going to get to your two calls. I've closed out the lines, so we will get you two here in just a second. But Min, go ahead and speak to what Shannon just said there, and then we'll get to the next call.
Yeah, sure. So I guess, Shannon, I guess because in my society, like religion, like Buddhism is intertwined to the culture. So I don't. If you ask me, do I actually believe there is some sort of deity in that? I would say that at this point of my life, not really. I'm not seeing anything to be convinced of that. But I mean, the thinking, to derive any values, I do have to engage in some sort of metaphysical narrative in the religion to get it out. I don't think logic very well when it deals to meaning of my life or ethical conduct or like suffering. I don't think in those terms in logical words very well. So then the narrative in religion helped me work through that more easily and more productively. So that's why I'm still religious, I guess.
So when you say religious, you mean that you found benefit from that specific cultural practice. So you're going to continue engaging in that cultural practice without the belief in any sort of deity affiliated with it. So
yeah,
you wouldn't necessarily classify yourself probably as religious then, because you don't believe in the deity affiliated with it. You just, that religion happened to have some practices culturally that you glean benefit from and find value in, which, well, you should, and everybody should. Like culture is important. So
yeah.
So
yeah, I mean,
you're,
Shannon, I'm sorry. You go ahead, Shannon.
yeah, so I'm so sorry, man. It's difficult. There's a little tiny bit of a lag. I'm quite about, so I apologize for stepping on you when you're speaking. If I'm understanding what you're saying, you're saying that if you hadn't had that religion, you wouldn't have had those introspective opportunities that you found value. So there was value in religion because you had those introspective opportunities. But if you look at the broader scope, is every component and aspect of that religion, if you were an adherent to that religion, if you were someone that believed in all its tenets and its deity, which is the ultimate conclusion of the actual religion itself, and you followed it all to its ultimate conclusion, do you think that there would be any detriment? Or do you think that you're looking back retrospectively from the outside in, because you've admitted that you don't really adhere to the tenets, you just find benefit in the practices? So it seems to me that you might be saying that there are practices that I gleaned from this that are beneficial, so I'd like to retain those, which is possible without the religion, because you're currently doing it without the religion. You're not religious, you just find benefit in some cultural practices that are affiliated with the religion.
And
well, Shannon. Yeah. So I'll be quick and then I'll leave the live so you can take other callers. So what I want to say is, when there comes some sort of moral dilemma I had to deal with, I don't know how to think logically to resolve it. But when I read parables, like a Zen Buddhism story, somehow I'm able to work it out, and it can work out very quickly. And I don't have to think too much. It's somehow, I guess, subconsciously it's sorted out somehow, and I get like immediately and know what to do. But if I had to think logically the way you do, it may take a long time. I may never get the answer I have to. yet.
That's interesting
You know,
that
to
you
deal
would
with
ascribe.
Logically?
It's
What?
interesting that you would ascribe the way that you would assume the way that I engage in decision making and problem solving. That's interesting because it sounds to me as though if you approach it, you're saying if you approach problems like life problems from a cold, calculated, logic only perspective, it's difficult to resolve them. But if you go into something that's comfortable and familiar and something that elicits emotional responses and active and inarguably activates different components of your neurological, structure, like if there's different
Yeah.
parts of your brain that are being activated at that point, like you
Yeah.
rather than just cold logic, you're activating your emotional centers at the same time. If you're simultaneously activating the parts of your consciousness that engage in emotional problems while contemplating a logical problem, there's a really solid chance that you're going to come to a more beneficial solution, because all of our problems aren't logical problems. Most of our problems aren't mathematical. They have to do with the dynamics of people. And those are emotional dynamics that you need to have future projection in order, and you need to understand how to interact with people. If you look at those strictly logically, they're never going to work, because you can't logically predict the next action of a human, because we're all a little bit bananas. But if you rest in an emotional place where you're looking at things introspectively from a perspective where you're engaging on an emotional level based on a metaphor or some sort of parable that is similar to the issue that you have, then sure, there's a better chance, especially if that's a place that you deem inspirational because of past history with religious experiences. Of course, it would logically follow that you have a better chance that you're going to find a more beneficial solution to that problem in that scenario, because of course you would, because you're engaging the faculties that are required in order to effectively solve that problem, where otherwise you wouldn't be.
And Min, why don't we do this? Why don't you call in with us again next week?
Yes.
Did you just
I'm
send,
sorry,
did you just send in a super chat, Min?
Yeah, that's me. Yes.
Thank you it says you guys are awesome. Thank you for taking my call. Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad that you called. Give us a call back.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, I'll leave it so you can take another call. Thank you, Kai, and thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, man.
Give us a call back next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then now we have Storm Bruner. I hope I'm saying that right. Storm Bruner?
That is correct.
Okay. And it says that you want to talk about Christians and the idea of redemption.
Well, their idea of redemption, yes.
Sure.
So this is mostly geared towards Shannon. Hi, Shannon. Nice to speak to you.
Hi. Nice to speak to you too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a new subscriber, pretty big fan. So this is more of a geared towards you because of your expertise in psychology.
Expertise is a strong word.
Wait a minute. I also have expertise in psychology. I really don't.
Okay. Well, then that's great.
I'm just kidding. I really don't. That's
good times, great. Here we go. Okay, this is geared towards both of y'all.
I'll just say something stupid.
Okay.
No, you won't, Kyle. Be kind to yourself.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I was raised. A little background. I was raised in Texas in a very, very Christian area, and I've only been able to get out of that echo chamber over the past 8 years, and at this day I'm no longer a Christian. I'm an agnostic atheist, and it's like the more I'm outside of that echo chamber, the more that I begin to read into the things that were said to me and the conversations that I've had with people from my hometown. So this one conversation in particular that I had with a good friend of mine, he's really, really great guy. He's a preacher. And we're talking about, the idea of what was so appealing to Christianity for him was the idea of redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And So like the way the scriptures say is that the blood of Jesus Christ will wash your sins away. And he interpreted that to mean that literally all the bad things you've done to people or just done in general would be literally wiped from existence. And I'm just like, to me, that's not how the world works. When something is done, it cannot be undone. You can try to redeem yourself, but you cannot undo it. So my question is that, do y'all think that it's possible that one of the big reasons why people hold on to Christianity in particular, that's the one I'm going to really address here, is because they have, done something shitty in the past, and they hurt somebody, and that person is long gone, and they can't go make it up to them in person, so they try to make up for it by going to church and serving, the God of the Bible. Do you think that they try to seek a pseudo redemption from something like that?
It's possible.
Hello?
I'll just throw in real quick and then let Shannon take it, because that is a question that's geared towards her, and I think she would be able to put it out more succinctly than I can. But I would say there are probably circumstances where that's happened, and it's entirely possible. I don't think it's a main driver of it. I would point to like tradition within a family, or some sort of link between it's something that they grew up with and they just kind of stick with it. But I'm sure there have been many cases where the very scenario you described happens. Shannon, I think that, would that be right to say, like, for the most part, it wouldn't be the case?
For when it comes to converting into, I wouldn't know necessarily. Most people are born into their religion. It's relatively rare, I would say. I wouldn't go so far as very, but definitely relatively rare for somebody to convert out of one faith into another, or from no faith into a faith of some sort. It's rare. It happens, but it's rare. And the reasons, I think, are very personal when it takes place. But what I would say is, when you're raised in a faith like that the fear of hell and the promise of atonement, if we're speaking specifically about Christianity, are pretty solid retention strategies. If you're looking to keep people, if you're looking for somebody to not want to turn away from a faith, knowing that you've gone through a life and made mistakes like all of us had, and done some potentially shitty things and treated some people wrong, and that you can ask somebody else for forgiveness, and not even ask that person, and not even actually in real life give reparations for what you've done, and still have the promise of eternal pleasure for doing all of the hard work of being sorry, would that's appealing. It's appealing. Why would not it be appealing? Why wouldn't you want that? Especially when it's coupled with the fear that if you don't do those things, if you don't, cash in that get out of jail free card, you're going to be tortured forever. And if you really believe in both of those things, if you really believe that you're going to be tortured forever if you don't atone, and if you really believe that you can atone and not only avoid being tortured forever, but be entirely absolved of what you did without even having to address it with the person or people that you have done it to, why wouldn't you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and going, that whole moral reasoning of, you need to do this, otherwise you need to make amends to this person, otherwise God's going to cast you into hell. I just don't understand that moral reasoning anymore, because like, it's, to me, it's like, I'm just like everybody else. I've made mistakes. I've hurt people that I care about, people that I didn't care about. But it didn't matter, because at the end of the day, I still felt bad. I don't really want to hurt people. And so, I tried to make amends. I tried to seek redemption with those people because I guess I have I know I said people I didn't care about, but I guess in a way I have a general caring for all of humanity. But
you care about what it says about you too.
What's that?
Can I say something on that? I'm sorry, Shannon. Go ahead. What did you say? I don't think he heard what you said.
Really quick, I said, and also you care about what it says about you too. You want to have a good perspective of yourself. You want to be a good person, and you want to instantiate values that demonstrate to yourself that you are the person that you want to be.
Exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. So, go ahead.
Ultimately, though, the religion angle isn't going to get you, I don't think, in the long run, that satisfaction. Even if you were to follow the religion to a T, it's not going to, I don't think, right your conscience about whatever wrongs were done. To me, the only way to sort of make those right is to actually go to those that you've wronged and try to make amends. That would be the best, most effective way. Now,
the only way that matters.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people don't do that. Why? Because we become cowards. We don't want to face the one thing that humans just do not want to face in any aspect is when we mess up, when we do something wrong, when we've done somebody wrong, when we've broken the rules. That's why people lie like they do. You will do anything to try to get out of someone knowing that you did something wrong, whether it be against them or against society as a whole, or whatever the case may be. But the only way to really, I guess, any sort of redemption is through that person that you wronged. Otherwise, to me, it's meaningless. Like you can go to church and pray every Sunday, but it doesn't do anything to right the wrong that you did against that specific person. That specific person still feels that injustice that was done towards them, and you being in a building every Sunday praying to some deity does not in any way, shape, or form make that person feel whole again. So you have to go to the source of where you messed up and try to make amends for true redemption, I would say.
Yeah. The idea that you could do something reprehensible to somebody, ask for forgiveness, and have it forever without resolving it with that person who is still potentially suffering irreparably and has no forgiveness to ask for because they did nothing wrong, and you can walk away with a clean conscience while they still walk through life suffering, is morally reprehensible in my mind. Carl had a fantastic point there.
Yeah, I agree.
Psychology.
My dad, for example, he talks about how before he was a Christian, he was a horrible person, and I've heard that story from a dozen different other men that in my hometown about how when they became a Christian, they supposedly became better people. I don't really know if that's true or not because I can't really say because I didn't know them. I was still pretty young when I was hearing these stories, so I didn't know them before they became Christian. So, but true. I think that it's like these people latch on to an empty promise of redemption with Christianity, and I think that's. I guess maybe it's really a thing in my own little community in Texas.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Very good way to put it. Excellent call.
Yeah, thank you. Great question.
Thank you very much, Stormburner, for calling. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, it was nice to speak to y'all. Thanks for having me.
You as well.
Me too.
I know these are great calls.
So good.
I know, and you know what? We've missed since we've cut off. There have been 62 calls. Okay, so
guys, we're gonna do this every week. This will be so much fun. We're gonna talk to everyone
every Thursday. Everyone,
all of the people.
We'll be on time next week. The free skeptic.
Oh my God, that's me.
That wasn't your fault.
Free skeptic. That was totally my fault.
Now this is going to be a very somber thing to end on, but nonetheless,
I'm
we
not.
will try to get into it. But you want to talk about the right to die?
Oh,
I do. First of all, your screen or whatever, it's furry skeptic, but that's okay. Like,
furry skeptic.
I don't know if you guys remember me, but on Twitter and stuff. And, yeah.
You made me into a garbage
but that doesn't matter. Yeah. No, past vector, yeah.
Actually, I have the two people responsible for that in one call. Sorry, we're getting static from your end, furry skeptic. I don't know what's happening.
My case was fun. I'm so bad.
Reality.
I was making a joke. I was making a joke that we were losing your connection.
Oh.
Please go ahead.
I'm bad at sarcasm, guys.
Me too.
But yeah, I'm just talking to two of the wrong people then. King and queen.
No, you'll just. I'm just so terrible. It's okay. So I just wanted to talk about this because I just find it interesting, like an interesting topic. Because Shannon, I don't know your thoughts on this, but Kyle, you had said in one live stream that I'd heard you were talking about that you believe in the right to die if, like, for extreme medical conditions. Is that right?
Right. Correct.
Okay, so why not for any reason? Because I kind of think people should have that right for any reason.
Sure, I understand that. And this is again is just like the cake thing I was talking about earlier. There are some issues where both sides I think can make sense, and it just is going to depend on sort of like how your brain works and where you fall on it. I can see the side for why not just let people who are, I assume you're talking about like severely depressed, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think people should get help first. Like, I'm not saying just at the first inclination, whatever. Yeah. But at a certain point, there are people that just don't get better, or maybe they're just old and they're not sick, they're just done, you know? And they should be able to have that right to say, okay, I'm done.
I'll agree with you on the age thing. I would see a problem there. The where I have an issue, and I think where the distinction lies for me is, I don't want to think of somebody, let's say in their 20s, in a state where it's just like they just feel hopeless and not being able to see the other, the end of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just dark, and making a decision that if they would have just held on a little bit longer, maybe they could have got out of. Or, I mean, that's just, to me, like, I don't want to let somebody, like, make a decision like that is just so final, especially at that age, because there's so many things going on, not only within themselves, chemically, or as they're growing, but their social structures. People are evil. Like, people are really, really shitty people sometimes. And if you get bullied to the point to where you just want to shut off, and there's this option made available, to me, it scares me that this will be an option that's taken out without,
So what about this? What if there was an option that, like, you would have to go through a certain amount of, like, therapy first, or try medication first, and maybe it's like a year later or down the road. But if somebody's feeling that way, I feel like now it's like, well, I'm just going to do it because there is no other option. If there was that option, even if they had to go through the obstacles to do it, maybe they would be more apt to seek help rather than just ending it in secret. Does that make sense?
I would say I would leave it up to doctor. This is where I'll say it, and then Shannon, you can go. I would say, like, if I had to lay out what I think it should be, that decision should be left up to people who, like, are psychologists, psychiatrists, people who work in that field, to be able to make the decision on if that's something that should be an option or not. I don't know. I just know that me personally, it'd be a hard pill to swallow for somebody that's, young and have their whole life ahead of them to cut it short. But this is, again, something that it's just my opinion. I don't know what the studies say on this, on what the best option Tobias, but I do agree with you on
I
like
don't
the
either.
age thing and the sickness, cancer. Absolutely, you should be able to take it in that option. All right, Shannon.
I have so much to say. And first, I'd like to apologize to Kyle because I never shut up. So I'm sorry. You probably felt like you never get a chance to talk to me. I'm always just like, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk now.
I spent 4 days with you. If anybody knows that you don't ever shut up, it's me.
That's true, actually. That's true. You weren't listening to me though, so it was fine. So I shouldn't have laughed going into this. This is such a somber topic, but I'm the worst person. All right, so preface. Everybody has the right to do whatever they want with their own life. Absolutely. Everybody unequivocally has the right to do whatever they want with their own life. It's their life. It's the only one they get. They're the only ones who are in control of it. It's absolutely their right. Now, where it becomes complex is when you're talking about something like euthanasia. That's where you're getting somebody else to assist you with ending your life so that you can do it in the most, this poor choice of words, but I guess humane, comfortable way possible.
Right.
Now, when it comes to something like a terminal illness, something where no matter what happens, the cure to the disease that you currently have is not going to be found in time to cure you before you go like march down a painful, torturous path to an inevitable end. That I believe you should absolutely have a right to a humane ending where somebody would feel comfortable and justified in doing the right thing by you in that situation. Now, when it comes to something like a mental health issue, it's not as cut and dry. And one of the reasons that it's not as cut and dry is because mental health isn't linear. You don't get diagnosed with something like depression or, but bipolar disorder, or borderline disorder. You don't get diagnosed with something like that. And then it's a straight path towards a predetermined conclusion. You get diagnosed with something like that, and there are things that you can do to mitigate it that in many cases will work, and in some cases will not work. There are times when it will get worse, and there are times when it will get better, but you have no idea which one of those cases you will be. You just don't know. It's a time will tell situation. And I can understand, and oh my goodness, I can empathize with how just mind-bogglingly painful and awful and insurmountable and incomprehensible it is, inarticulable to anybody who hasn't experienced it to understand. And anybody who says that you aren't justified for feeling as though maybe that's something that you're entitled to clearly hasn't gone through it and doesn't understand what it's like to stand in your shoes. However, you do not know, and that is just a fact, you do not know if 5, 10, or 15 years from now, you will be in the same state that you are currently, or if there will be something that can mitigate it for you. You just don't know. It's not as linear a progression.
Someone wait 5, 10, 15, sorry. It just feels like making someone wait 5, 10, 15 years of being in that to see if maybe it will get better. I don't know. That feels kind of not right either.
Wouldn't that be worth it though? If they could be happy?
Well, it doesn't feel like it's worth it at the moment.
Maybe not to them. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's worth it at the moment, and that I get. That I completely understand. It doesn't feel like it's worth it at the moment, and it may, it may not be worth it ultimately, unfortunately, for like a small minority of people. However, as I said, everybody has the right to do whatever they choose with their own life, but there are things that you can do to mitigate it, and you should exhaust all options before even considering something along those lines. And if you are looking for a euthanasia option, which is what I was prefacing this conversation with, you should not ask somebody else to put themselves in a position where they have to live the rest of their life, ending yours, not knowing whether or not it could have got better.
And can I say a point real quick to that? Like, to me, here's why I think that's a very, very important point, because Shannon said at the beginning that it's your body to do with what you want, right? And I think we all agree with that here. But if someone is hell bent on ending their life, they're going to do it regardless of whether euthanasia is legal or not. And those that are hanging on, just for the euthanasia part, I think are the ones that would make it through until something worked. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you desire to end your life bad enough, nothing's going to stop you from doing that.
Right.
Like, what is that? What exactly are you asking? Are you asking if assisted suicide should be available, if some sort of euthanasia should be available, or if people should just have the right to do it? Because undeniably they have that right. Literally nobody can stop them.
Well, I was leaning more towards that the assisted or euthanasia option should be available.
I absolutely couldn't advocate
I definitely agree that definitely go through whatever, like, try to get better, but I just know that there are people that don't, and that, I don't know. I
understand that you're looking at it from a place of empathy.
Yeah, you're being empathetic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the question at all. I mean, it's a very valid question. It just hinges on is the euthanasia aspect of it the only thing keeping them from committing suicide? And if you have a desire to, if you're that miserable, going through life, usually nothing's going to stop you. And if you're just holding out for euthanasia to become legal, I think that's one of those times that those people can hold on and maybe get through it. Maybe not. I don't know. It's one of those, like I said, I don't know if I don't know the studies behind it, or if this would cause an increase in suicides that are maybe
not necessary.
Unnecessary.
And I think my question comes a lot from empathy of, like, I'd rather, it seems better to, if they're going, like you said, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it, and rather than it be painful or doing it wrong, or like it being worse, like if something happened, getting an injection and going to sleep and getting the chance to say goodbye to your family first, that just seems the kinder way to do it, I guess. I don't know. I
can understand your empathy, and
sure,
and I understand that your heart's in the right place going into it. I could never advocate for that, because, like I said, and this is a really important point, I think, there's no predetermined conclusion. There's no predetermined outcome with mental health disorders. There is no telling what the long-range forecast is going to be for you in these situations. There just isn't. Like, it, I mean, you could go, I don't want to make anything analogous because it's not fair to do it, but just it could be temporary. There's no guarantee that it's not, but in a lot of cases it is. It really, really is. It doesn't feel temporary, and it feels incredibly painful. But if I had the choice now, going in with a clear mind, not being affected by a mental health disorder at the moment, to say, you're going to go, through a bout of something, and going into it, somebody told me it may last the rest of your life, or it may last 6 months to a year, and you won't know which. You won't know which. I feel as though I would want to see if I could come out the other end and do everything I could to make sure that I did. And that would be the best thing for me, and the most empathetic thing in that scenario for me, because I'm given the opportunity for life at the other side. And this is the only one I have.
Mm-hmm. But your heart's in,
okay.
your heart's in the right place though, for schedule. I definitely understand where you're coming from, and it's a very fair question. Thank you so much for calling in. This was amazing.
Sorry for leaving Terry's making the sad one last.
No,
it's okay. No, it was great, fantastic. We'll just say garbage ferret, and that will make everybody
garbage ferret.
Bye.
Best thing I've ever done for society.
I think with a total of of 9 calls, 62 attempted calls.
Wow.
This was a success, and I've been watching my chat. I don't know about yours, but
I think I have super chats. I should go look.
Oh, yes.
I have two. You probably have like 38, but I have 2. No. Oh, and they're both from Vibrantly Brantley. Oh, thanks, Vibrantly Brantley. I love Brant. He's always super supportive of the channel. The first one, he said, Santa's not real, unsubscribed. Okay, well, maybe I take it back.
Well,
he's always super
soon,
supportive.
Wow.
And the second one said,
no.
I know. Prove me wrong. And the second one said, if you don't want Bell to charge you long distance, send super chats to have your questions heard. Aw, he redeemed himself on the second one. He clearly did not subscribe. Brant's one of my glorious patrons. He would never do that to me.
And Kwasa says, what would it take to get Kyle in an 80s mullet and Shannon in a 70s afro wig as fan service? Not a lot.
Oh,
we're very easy. God. We can do that.
I don't know. I'd have to go find an afro wig.
Let me think. What big events coming up? Are there any holidays or when's your birthday?
December 8th.
Oh, okay. Mine's in July. Maybe in July.
It's Paul's on May 24th, though.
There we go. Paul's birthday. Nancy Sorviso says, thanks for the stream. Your international number. I don't have an international number yet. I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you. Next week we will have one. Thank you for that note. See, it's the little things that you don't even think about. Corrupt syntax, from the shortest truck driver from India to the ugliest plumber from Florida. Kyle wins today's hair debate. Oh, hell.
What?
Yeah. Stonehawk says, so freaking happy to see some furry representation around here. Thank you so much for those super chats. But yeah, I was going to say, I was watching the live chat and people were just, I think, thrilled. If you liked this stream in both chats, give a Q, a capital Q in the chat so that we can see that. But I thought this was an amazing success. You didn't go full Shannon, and you did great.
I didn't go full. We started late, and I had to create an entirely new live stream. But aside from that,
that was your fault.
that was full Shannon. Yeah, but now I know better.
I expected you to mess up, honestly, a lot more than you did, and I'm kind of Dave. Thanks. I'll give you that 20. I'll give you that 20 tomorrow.
Damn asshole! All the time, every time. I think, you know what? Today's the day that me and Kyle are just going to be delightful to each other. You decide, fuck that.
Well,
I'm going to be angry today.
Brian G says, if I outreach Inc. ever calls in, put him at the front of the line, please. Shannon and I can some guy that was like talking shit about atheism in the live chat. Obviously, here's the thing about these people though, and then I promise we'll let you guys go because you've been very patient, especially on my side, hanging with us for 5 hours now. But people who talk a lot of shit in the chat and just sound completely ignorant never, ever, ever will come in and back up what they say on a stream.
Yeah,
ever.
Call.
So
that's a great thing about this. It's like you can call if you have an issue with us instead of just like being a keyboard warrior in the chat talking about blah, 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 they don't know what they're talking about. Call in. We're gonna do it every week. It's my understanding.
Every Thursday.
At this time on Thursdays, me and Kyle on both of our channels are going to be taking calls now. So now's your opportunity. Tell us all about why we're wrong about everything. You don't have to do it in the chats. You can do it to our face. Be brave.
And,
I'm ready.
And we will sometimes be. Shannon and I have the call screen in front of us, so we can see who's calling and what they're calling about. There will be times too where maybe somebody that has a disagreement or a question, we will be able to take the order in. So if sometimes you call in and the wait times are a little long, it's only because we're triaging the. You like how I threw that word in?
You did. That's a good word, Kyle. I'm really proud of you. I'm going to give you that star I promised you on your chart.
Yay! Corrupt Syntax says both you and Reds can't pronounce Indiana, not India.
Oh, and Shane said, yay, Shannon. Thanks, Shane. Shane sent us a super chat.
Well, Shannon, do you have anything that you want to say before we say goodnight?
I'm sorry I screwed up the start of this. I'll be better next time. And B, this was so much fun. These calls were fantastic. Thanks, guys, for being such amazing callers. This was really cool. And tell other people, get people to call. If you want to see apologists talk to us, or you think that there's somebody that you wish would just use either myself or Kyle, you're like, oh man, I wish that those two would go head to head. Go send them the number. The number will be the same. Bring it. Let's go. We're both ready. Kyle and I aren't afraid. Give it to everybody. We want to do it.
It depends on the day and what I got going on. I might be ready.
That's fair. You have no idea. I've seen him at 8 o'clock in the morning, and let me tell you.
That was 7:30. Thank you. Only because the night before, Shannon was like, Shannon and Paul both gave me like the look that your parents give you when they're like, you're gonna be home at 12, right? And they're like, you're really gonna be home at 12? They're like, we're leaving at 7:30. I said, okay, cool. And then they both stopped and went, we're leaving at 7:30. Okay.
And were we wrong though? Because what happened the next night?
Oh,
got off the elevator. You got off the elevator, and we went to our room. And then the next time we saw you, we were in Austin, and you had a red hat that you got because after we dropped you off at the hotel, in your hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning, you took off your belt and called an Uber and went to Walmart and got your goddamn grapes because you're a diva and you need grapes all the time, apparently. Like Cleopatra always has grapes. Always.
Cleopatra was fabulous. Thank you very much. But if I had someone to sort of figuratively knock boots with in the hotel room, I wouldn't have left to go to Walmart either. So this is just a failure. This is a failure of me having someone that was willing to sleep with me. Okay.
Failure is that.
Good night.
Not mine.
Good night. Thank you for the call.